Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wolfpacker Show. I'm Ethan McDowell, your host, joined as I always am by Noah Fleischman, our newest staff writer on the Wolfpacker.com. And we're here to discuss some NC State football. They picked up a dominant 45-7 win over VMI yesterday. Kind of complete effort in all three phases, pretty much what you wanted to see after last week's tough loss. And we're going to dive into the highlights from offense, defense, and special teams yesterday. First, a couple house cleaning items. We just want to shout out our sponsor, the Game Time app. It's a ticket buying and selling marketplace. That's concerts, games, anything you need tickets for. Game Time has what you need. I'll show you on the app. It's a really easy to use interface. They offer you the lowest prices at the top, show you the best deals. And one of the coolest things I really like about it is usually when I'm buying tickets, I have to, look up the seat view, right? You want to see where you're sitting, what it's going to look like. Well, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm holding up the app and you can see the view from your seat if you buy for this game. This is the UNC NC State game, not for a while out now, but the cheapest ticket for that is $121. Sold out contest, so high demand there. But Game Time has the best deals on there, and they can get you seats for the big game, even up to an hour before kickoff if you feel like procrastinating. So that's gametime.co or download the Game Time app. Also, please subscribe to the Wolfpacker.com. Noah and I put a ton of, in my opinion, great content up on the website yesterday. Just some really cool analysis, and we wrote up a few stories on the highlights from the VMI game. It was really fun. We're building a great community over on the Wolfpacker.com with our Wolves Den message board, the State of Basketball message board, and hop on the boat because it's piling up. And let's just dive right into it. VMI, Noah, your initial thoughts on the blowout win?
Yeah, I thought they played, complimentary football. That's what Dave Doran talked about, on Thursday. He was like, that's what he wanted to see them grow from Notre Dame to now. And he said he couldn't really tell until they actually played the game because it's hard to really show offense, defense, special teams working in unison in practice. And on yesterday, we saw that. Offense scored on this first four possessions, 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Defense had a pick 6 mixed in there. And then, on special teams, they returned 2 kickoffs back for a touchdown. Only one of them counts. So, but I think that's probably as well as they could play in kind of a complementary style of play where everyone's contributing. And I think Dave Doran was happy, with seeing that before, tougher competition comes up here this week.
Yeah, and Coach Doran talked all week about how this was they felt like it was a focused week of practice. Like people came out with the intensity they needed to, starting Sunday during team meetings and, going in through all the practices during the week. And it showed. I don't know really if you could play more complimentary football than what they showed on Saturday. Each phase of the game really, really elevated the others. It really encouraging to me just special teams this season. It's really just been lights out. Other than like the missed field goal last week against Notre Dame, this has been a really, really good special teams unit by the Pack. Shout out to Todd Goebel, who's the special teams coordinator. He's got those guys performing really well right now. It's really what I wanted to see from the offense. Brennan took what VMI gave him, really passing wise. They were dropping back their entire defense on most plays. The offensive line held up really well against that, which is encouraging. And Brennan, relied on his receivers to make plays after the catch, hit the check downs, and they did. Kevin Concepcion bounced back. I was looking to see how he would respond to an up and down game against Notre Dame, and he caught all 7 of his targets. In my opinion, he's the number 1 receiver on this team at this point. Out of the slot, I think he is going to be a reliable and explosive option for this team all year. I was happy to see Julian Gray get into the end zone. It always seems like he's just like 1 or 2 guys on pretty much all of his kick returns away from breaking one like that. And that was his first career touchdown. So it was cool to see him get in the end zone. I was happy for him. All right. And so I guess, those are a lot of positives. Let's mention a couple of negatives. Anything you're concerned about that you noticed during that game, Noah?
Yeah, I think the third quarter really showed the negatives of this game. I mean, both teams scored one touchdown. VMI had its best drive of the day. It was 7 plays, just over 60 yards. They benefited from a pass interference and a hold. I think they had two penalties on the drive, on the same side of the field, just throwing down the field, hoping to get it, and they got it. They had a couple explosive plays, 41-yard catch and then a 22-yard touchdown pass. So that's probably the biggest negative. You look at this game and you say, all right, well, VMI wasn't playing well for most of the game on offense, and then puts together that kind of drive. So I think if you're gonna nitpick them, I think that's the drive that you're gonna look at the most and say, all right, why did VMI find so much success? Granted, they were without NC State's defense without Aiden White this weekend, so that probably doesn't happen if he's on the field. They just went after some of the younger corners on the field that haven't played as much, and it showed. But other than that, I think that's probably the biggest negative if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, and on that drive, it was primarily Brandon Cisse, the true freshman cornerback, guarding VMI's best receiver. Cisse hasn't played a ton so far through the first couple games, and I wonder if the defensive coaches were almost like, let's just throw him into the fire and see how he does here. And he had one pass interference call that I thought was pretty clearly pass interference. And then the second one was marginal at best, in my opinion. I thought it was actually pretty good coverage by him. And then he got beat for the touchdown as well. So that's a learning moment for him. Like Coach Doran said last week, freshman mistakes are going to happen when you play freshmen. I think it's safe to say you'd rather those mistakes happen when you're up multiple scores against VMI. So that'll be a learning experience for Brandon. Hopefully Aiden White is healthy for next week against UVA. I was told he was kind of just banged up during last week. I don't really have any specifics as to what that injury is or what his timeline is, but hopefully he returns. And it sounds like Raheem Ashford also could be back after his scary injury against UConn, which would be great to bolster safety depth back there. The main stat that stands out to me that kind of caught my eye was the 8 tackles for loss by VMI. Like I mentioned earlier, the offensive line did really well holding up in pass protection. I think they allowed 1 sack, but other than that, it was a good day. Run blocking, I'd say it got better throughout the game, but they still, those 8 tackles for loss, VMI had 11 through their first 2 games against, 2 FCS teams that aren't very good. So that's not a super encouraging number. But other than that, I would maybe like to see a little more explosive plays by the running backs early. But I thought as the game went along, I think NC State kind of wore VMI's defense down, and Michael Allen was getting stuff going. Kendrick Raphael had one of the plays of the game when he hurdled a defender and showed off the explosiveness that clearly has these coaches so excited. I'm kind of looking to see if his carry workload kind of carries over in the ACC play, because man, he sure showed some flashes over the past couple games. I think he could be a really, really nice player, maybe even immediately for this team. And, the explosive plays, NC State limited them. One thing I was encouraged by is VMI's running back did break one. He had one, I believe it was like 23, 24-yard rush. And but when he got to the second level, Sean Brown chased him down, cut it off, stopped a 20-yard play from becoming a 50-yard play. That's encouraging. That's something Coach Doran mentioned, is when an assignment gets missed, when an offensive line does a perfect job and opens up a giant hole, it's on the secondary to make a play at that point. And Sean Brown did. And that's encouraging to see from the redshirt sophomore. As far as eye discipline goes, which I'd say was probably the other main focus of the defense this week, there's still some issues with covering tight ends. VMI's tight end got open a couple times on plays that could have been explosive gains. One of them, he was wide open on, I believe it was a play action, or was it a trick play? It was something. There was something to throw off NC State's defense, and he was wide open down the field early in the game. Peyton Wilson, continues to make Peyton Wilson plays. He jumped and got a hand on the ball, and it fell incomplete. And then later in the game, I believe it was the same tight end, and they just missed him throwing on a vertical route down the field. So, that's more film for the defense to study. They got to hone in on that before, NC State gets into the meat of their schedule here. But overall, really solid performance. Noah and I are definitely nitpicking here. It was a really good game, complete performance. Good to see. All right. And every week we like to give out game balls. Noah actually did this on our site immediately after the game. So go check that out on the wolfpacker.com. It's free to read. But Noah, just one of your players for the game and why you chose that player.
Yeah, Kendrick Raphael, we already touched on him, but I picked him, pretty decently into the game. I mean, he played really well as a freshman. I mean, he helped set up that last touchdown drive with, 5 carries for 45 yards on that drive, I believe, and, really was moving the ball well. I think he sticks out a lot. Dave Doran talked about, you talked about KC, stepping up this week and having 7 catches. Still hasn't scored yet. I think that's coming soon this year. But, Dave Doran had talked about, seeing the freshman growing, and he talked about this week that, after the game, that the freshmen may have, bounced back better than some adults on the team and things like that. And I think that was good to see it. And, they are 18, 19 years old, but they're able to bounce back from a game that didn't go NC State's way and could have been a, pretty, deflating loss against Notre Dame, which they felt they had a chance to win. And you come back, bounce back, play, almost a perfect game for the most part as a freshman. And I think that's good. So I think, we didn't give KC a game ball, but, I think for his bounce back, we can give him the honorable mention of a game ball. But I definitely picked Kendrick out. He ran well, led the team in rushing, had 16 carries, which is, 9 more than the next guy had on the team. So they obviously want to give him some of the load, and we'll see, if that actually carries over into ACC play and kind of continue his expanding role.
Yeah, and this is another guy you didn't mention. I'll give out an honorable mention as well. Is Lyndon Cooper. He was injured to start the year, but he's worked his way back into the rotation and had to fill in for Dylan McMahon when the center went out with an injury. That's a big responsibility to fill, especially when you're working your way back from an injury. And I thought Lyndon played well. I noticed. I haven't rewatched the game yet, but I've noticed in the press box that he got to the second level a couple of times. Had a couple pancakes in there, and I thought he did a good job. And I believe Doran shouted him out as well after the game. So hopefully the injury to Dylan isn't serious, but if it is, NC State has a reliable offensive lineman. They can slide inside the center if they need to. The guy I do want to give the game ball to, it's maybe the most obvious pick, is Robert Kennedy. Noah, you wrote a feature on him on the website as well after the game, but he had big shoes to fill this season. Tyler Baker-Williams was a really good nickel for a really long time at NC State. And honestly, that was one of my biggest question marks coming into the year because, it was easy to take what Tyler Baker-Williams was doing for granted because he was so good and so consistent for so long. But, Robert Kennedy has slotted in and there hasn't been much, if any, drop off. He's been lights out to start the season. And that really culminated in just a huge game today. He had that pick six with, I thought he showed off great vision to weave his way between the tacklers and reach the end zone on that. Shout out to the defense for blocking well for him on that one. And then he just kind of kept it going. He had another pass breakup, I think, on the next drive. And then also ended up getting 1.5 sacks and 4 total tackles. It's just a really good performance from him. He said when we talked to him recently that he wasn't getting much action thrown his way this season. That's a good thing, of course, if you're a defensive back. They challenged him a little bit, and he met that against VMI. And when you have shutdown cornerbacks like Aiden White and Shaheem Battle on the outside, teams are going to have to try the slot receivers, going to have to try the guys that Robert Kennedy is covering. And if he keeps playing like this, it's going to be really, really difficult for teams to throw on NC State as the season goes along.
Yeah, it is. And he played really well too. I mean, we talked about it, and I think I asked him, how much confidence this gave him, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm a pretty confident guy." And he was kind of saying, why can't he get 3 sacks? Why can't he have 3 pick sixes in the game? So obviously, confidence isn't too much of an issue for him.
Absolutely not. And that's what you want in your defensive back. So that was cool to see. All right. And let's go second game ball. Anyone any other player you want to recognize for their contributions on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Brendan Armstrong, I think, it's obviously easy to give it to the quarterback. But I think he played really well with what he was given. I didn't give it to him on the, online game balls that I gave out right at the end of the game. But I think, he had 5 incompletions. He was the highest rated PFF player on the team, but he just took with what they gave him, right? A lot of underneath passing, a lot of passes within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and he made it work. They moved down the field, had long drives with those. I think that was good to see. He only took, I think, 3 shots down the field, which, they were playing really deep coverage, so it's kind of hard to do that. But he took with what they gave him, put together long drives, which is a good thing to see. They ate up a lot of clock on those drives. I think it was 4 plays of 4 times of 10 play or more drives, which is good to see. They had a 17 play drive that ended in a field goal
Yeah.
in the second quarter. But overall, I think he's a guy who played really well. Good bounce back game for him, and being able just to be accurate and be efficient.
And with Robert and I's offenses, you're gonna get those explosive plays. I feel like we've said the word explosive like a billion times in the past month. But you don't want to rely on the 40-yard, 50-yard passing plays, the 30-yard rushes, right? You want to be able to grind out those drives sometimes when teams are doing everything they can to stop you from getting behind the defensive backs. And while, it's VMI, you don't want to make any sweeping declarations against a FCS team that honestly just, wasn't much of a challenge for this group. But it should establish just a baseline confidence in Armstrong and the receivers, the running backs, the line, everyone that hey, we can march down this field and eat up like half a quarter on one drive if we need to. Like they have the capability to be a 4 yards and a cloud of dust team, and that's not necessarily even just through like running. Like they were using those quick passes, screens to almost substitute for like a 4 or 5 yard gain on first down. Um, you know, and that's promising to see. I really liked seeing that from this team. My second game ball, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Jalen Scott. He bounced back. I think it's been an up and down start to the season for him, but he's he's one of the upperclassmen leaders of this defense. He's taken on a big role this season, and he finished second on the team with 8 total tackles, half a sack, where he exploded into the backfield on this play. And him and I believe it was Brandon Cleveland came up with that sack together. But it was a really impressive play by him. He's showing off his explosiveness, and he said in the preseason that he feels like he knows the defense as well as anybody. And I think that definitely shows on some of these blitzes and how he's able to diagnose some plays and sniff out screens and short passes and stuff. So great building block for him as well. Looking forward to seeing where the season goes from here. All right, and now we're just going to shift our focus a little bit. Next up is a game against UVA. It's a Friday night game, I believe. Do you know if is it 7 or 7:30 kickoff? I can't remember.
7:30 this week and 7 for the Louisville game.
Yeah, so this is the first of 2 in a row Friday night kickoffs for NC State, which will be fun. It's prime time on a Friday night, and NC State has a short week to prepare. Personally, for me, number one thing I'm going to be watching is honestly just health. I think if you need to get Aiden White healthy, I think you could probably get away with not having him against UVA. But once it turns over to Louisville and the rest of that slate, man, you need your all ACC future NFL draft pick cornerback for those games. So hopefully there's nothing serious there and he can come back. And same with Dylan McMahon. I mean, another potential future pro guy that you need healthy for these big games, especially starting conference play. So that's my main focus. But Noah, just anything you're hoping to see, next steps of improvement, areas where you want to see just focus and practice this week? What are you looking for from the Pack over the next few days?
Yeah, I really think it's run blocking. I mean, we're not going to really preview UVA too much today, but UVA's got a great defensive line. They're all fifth, sixth, seventh year players in their D line. And you give up, NC State gave up 8 TFLs against VMI, who doesn't have, nearly the caliber of defensive set, front seven that, Virginia has, or that really any other team that NC State's going to see the rest of the way. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing to firm up, just because of how good, Virginia's front seven is. And they're going to have to really, don't let as many you're obviously going to give up tackles for loss. It's going to happen probably a couple of times in the game, but you need to limit it to a lot less than 8 against Virginia, just because their defense is kind of their strength, and if they get rolling there, then it's that whole field position game is going to get turned on its head. So I think that's kind of the biggest focus that I have for NC State as they work through this short week, and get ready for Friday's game.
Cool. Yeah, no, I totally agree on that. I mean, Anais mentioned last time we talked to him just about how maybe the strength of this offense needs to be that they're a good first and second down team, right? So you're not facing many third downs and third and longs, fourth and longs, and you can keep the sticks moving that way. I think from what we've seen so far that is the case. The third and long, obvious passing situations are not the strength of this team so far. And, you want to have more manageable situations there. And playing against, they're not as talented as Notre Dame's front, but another solid front in UVA. And, you're going to play a lot of solid defensive lines down the stretch of this season. So you got to get ready for that. All right. And just to close out here, little bit of shout outs as we wrap up this episode. First, Wolfpack fans, man, it was an FCS team. It was a 2 p.m. kickoff, but it was a sellout officially. And shoot, I thought most of the seats were full. It cleared out a little bit after halftime and as the game went on, but Wolfpack Nation showed up. I talked to a couple of the recruits that were there. And they were impressed as well. They were impressed by the on-the-field stuff. And, of course, they were impressed by the atmosphere, even though it was an FCS matchup. And then I don't know if we really mentioned special teams as much as we should have in this episode. So I just want to circle back to it. I mean, shoot, Julian Gray and Jalen Coit have just been huge for this team so far. They're single-handedly helping NC State win the field position battle. And that's really impressive. I'm really liking what I see from them so far this season. And Doran said he can see their confidence continuing to grow. And as that continues to happen, especially with Jalen, he said against UConn, he was probably happy to be, just catching the punts, fielding them cleanly. And then and Notre Dame, shoot, he made a couple plays and did all of that while playing in some difficult rainy field because of conditions. And then he had one 33-yard return and another solid one as well on Saturday. So, NC State had Thayer Thomas back there for 5 years, and he was a reliable playmaker back there. So just to have someone like Jalen come in and just so soundly fill that role, it's good to see. It's good to see NC State continues to have an advantage in the third phase of the game. All right, Noah, as we wrap up here, any other shout outs?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that when NC State, the game kind of got out of hand, a lot of the reserves came in on both sides of the ball. I think they played well. I mean, they weren't getting asked a ton. I mean, on offense, they just hand the ball off, just run the clock. But I think a lot of them played well overall, and it's good to see some guys get in the game that aren't going to play in many games this year, and we'll see. I think maybe there's some overreaction from some NC State fans of not seeing MJ Morris come in at the end, but there's no point in burning a game that for his red shirt. I think we probably will see him at some point this year on the field, and you want to have every opportunity. So if there is an injury at quarterback or anything like that, he is able to come in and play and not have to worry about losing that red shirt.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. That's a very good point because, yeah, there was a lot of people that were very confused why MJ didn't come in on that last drive. But he's played multiple games at this point, and what is the advantage to having him come in to burning his first redshirt game of this year on a one drive where you hand the ball off pretty much every single time. Like there's nothing to gain from that. Why would the coaches do that? In fact, I think if they had done that, there would be an equal amount of fans freaking out that they burned a game on his red shirt count. And yeah, so last year it was tough because he played in the Charleston Southern game, I believe, but either way, overall he finished with five games. He almost redshirted last year, but he had one play against Syracuse, right? So I think the staff is being very conscious about an opportunity to, potentially go into next season with a redshirt sophomore quarterback with 3 years of eligibility remaining. And yeah, it's nothing to freak out about. MJ is still, in my opinion, one of the better backup quarterbacks in the ACC. And if he is called into action at any point due to injury or anything else, he'll be ready. All right. Well, this has been the Wolfpacker Show. Thank you all for listening. Again, want to shout out our sponsor, the Game Time app. It's gametime.co, not .com, .co. Check it out. Ticket buying and selling marketplace, and it's perfect for someone like me who procrastinates and waits to the last minutes to buy tickets. They have the best deals out there, so go check them out. Louisville's up next. Go check out and see it's another sellout, but I'm sure there's a few tickets available on the resale market right now. So go check out the Game Time app or gametime.co for the best deals. And please go subscribe to thewolfpacker.com. It's only $1. It is $1 to join our website. And, it's exclusive recruiting scoops. That's basketball and football. There were 3 total basketball official visitors this weekend. Noah and I will have updates on all of them, hopefully in the next few days. So keep an eye on that. And then, football recruiting. I was in South Carolina to see NC State football quarterback commit Will Wilson this week. He had a great game. I wrote about it. I posted a bunch of highlights on our website. So go check that out as well. It's thewolfpacker.com. And you can find us on social media at the Wolfpacker. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, you can find us on YouTube at the Wolfpacker. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we're on all podcast platforms. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. I am Ethan McDowell. I'm with Noah Fleischman. Have a good week. We'll see you Wednesday.